Hello and welcome to another weekly live where I talk about all things MBA. Today we're going to focus on Wharton's team-based discussion interview. Decisions come out in essentially 1 week from today. So all of you who have submitted your application for round one, this is an excellent session for you to be a part of, and definitely ask your questions, whether that is live or through comments in whichever platform that you're joining us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So ask your questions wherever you are joining us from. I'll be monitoring the comments. I do have another screen on this side that will allow me to just navigate and see any questions that have come in as I go through the different slides that I prepared for today. I know that we've had quite a bit of a increase in audience on our different platforms. So I just wanted to go through quickly and make a brief introduction about me, for those of you who are new to our platform, as well as C Admissions, which is the company I am a coach at. So my name is Susan Bereshai. I'm the founder of C Admissions and an alumnus of NYU and Yale. I've gone through the journey of targeting and working through the applications for these top-ranked schools. And over the past 8 years, I've been supporting MBA candidates navigate the admission process. At SIA, the way we focus our coaching is really tailoring to the individuals. We do not believe that one size fits all and one approach fits every storyline. Rather, we do have a customized approach to the application process, because we recognize that an individual is made up of all the various different experiences that they've had over time. We are very much focused on the individual and understanding what their experiences have been and how those experiences can add value to an MBA cohort and an MBA classroom. This is what makes authentic applications, and that is how we approach all our coaching here at SIA, whether that is the strategy development to tell your story in an application, or interview preparation, or decision making. Where are you going in terms of which schools that you are targeting? We have a proven process in terms of what are the things that you must go through, and quite a rigorous process at that, but also very customized to the individual. So if you are looking to get support in any component of the application, I encourage you to reach out for a free consultation, where we will have a chance to talk about your experiences and what you are looking to do in this next chapter in your career. So with that, let's dive right into the topic for today. So like I mentioned earlier, if you just joined in, I will have a few slides that I will go through as I typically do, but I do also want to make sure that I am answering questions as you have them live. So please write your questions in the comments in whichever platform you're joining us from, so that I can provide answers and have this more of a conversation as much as we can. So for today, I will talk about the format of the Wharton TBD. Like I said, it's 1 week from today. For those who submitted their application in round one, you will hear a decision, whether that is you are invited to interview, whether that is you have been waitlisted or rejected. So it's a very important day. What I will say is that you're going to want to be monitoring your emails on the 24th between 9 a.m. and noon, to make sure that you know exactly what the decision has been and take necessary steps when you're invited to interview. Just a quick anecdote. Last year, I had a client who was in flight during the release date, and the applicant essentially was in flight and had no internet connection when they landed, which was 15 minutes after the announcement. There was an entire day worth of sessions had been already booked for that in that 15-minute window. So you definitely want to be monitoring this as you as the day starts, at least in the East Coast, and make sure that you book your slot when you are invited. So Let's talk a little bit about the format. So the Wharton TBD, Wharton interview rather, it's two-part interview. The first part is you are in a team setting working to solve a business problem. This will take about 30 minutes of discussion, intro discussions, and then a 5-minute presentation. This is all about group dynamic and coming up together with a problem that you are solving. You are given the prompt when you're invited to interview, so you will know exactly what the discussion is going to be about, but everyone is going to come with their own perspective of how to solve a problem, and then you collectively come together to collaborate and handle this, this problem from a differing perspective, coming from different perspectives, and presenting the best solution. Once you're done with the TBD, then there's a one-on-one 10-minute interview with one of the moderators. Typically, it's one or two moderators. One moderator if it's admission representative, so someone from the admissions office, and typically it's two moderators if it's students. So one or the other will happen to you when you're invited, and you will either wait or be the first one to join the one-on-one interview that follows. So today I want to talk a little bit more about essentially, how do you prepare? And this is more on the technical mindset side than it is on any specific strategy on how to solve a problem. That is going to obviously be, we'll be talking more about that. Actually, I have a session with GMAT Club next Friday that I will invite you to join. You can register on our website for that session and join us for the interview prep on the 25th of October. Or, of course, you can join our mailing list. We are launching the Wharton TBD mock interview simulation. So it will be a simulation of the entire experience at Wharton. So if you really want to make sure that you are prepared, absolutely sign up to be notified when the mock interview launches, which is on the day of the interview invites. You must have an interview invite to register, and seats are absolutely limited given the nature of this kind of interview style. So let's talk about the TBD, the team-based discussion, which is what TBD stands for, the dynamics and what you need to be doing. So the format, the reason why Wharton is, and this is unique to Wharton, the reason why this is structured in this way is that they want to simulate the real world scenario and simulate also what the Wharton experience is going to be like. This is making sure that you will be a successful teammate to your peers of 800 to 1,000 peers that you will be going through or working with. Perhaps not all of them, but in your classes and group work that you'll be doing at Wharton. So they really want to make sure that you will be able to thrive in that kind of environment. And this is a way for them to make sure that you are the right fit for Wharton. The expectations is that Wharton is looking for candidates who are very collaborative, who are adaptable, who have leadership potential. And leadership doesn't mean that everyone needs to lead, because obviously, if everyone leads, you can imagine how unproductive that can be. But you can have leadership in various different ways, and it's really important during the interview that you shine in your areas of strength as opposed to trying to be someone who you are not. So what is important during this for you as a candidate in terms of success in this dynamic, it's that you really establish rapport with your teams from the get-go. And this is really difficult to do because you've never met them before, typically, until that day that you show up to your interview. But you must make friends. This is what business school is all about. You also want to make sure that you are managing time effectively, whether you are the quote-unquote timekeeper or not. Be mindful of how much time you have. You as a team must collectively work really rapidly through the various different rubrics in terms of what you have to complete, and be mindful that obviously time is limited in terms of how much you can discuss and get to a final solution, or a solution that you guys agree, at least you don't hate. And of course, stay flexible during this time. Adapt to these new ideas as they emerge. Sometimes you may be the person who has the great idea that everyone likes, or your idea may not even be considered at all because some other idea was better. You really must be flexible and not take this personally. This is really a test of your ability to adapt and move a project forward, whether you like the project, like the idea or not. So what not to do in the Wharton TBD? I hear plenty of stories as I work with candidates in this process. We typically have a debrief after each of our interviews. And the idea there is that we want to make sure that we are growing and learning and seeing where the pitfalls the candidate experienced, and then be able to address those in the next interview. So in those conversations, I've come to realize just how many things there are, and what are the list keeps growing of what not to do. But I have 2 slides on this what not to do to make sure that you guys are being mindful of these pieces. So first and foremost, what not to do is to dominate a conversation. You are a part of a team, and everyone has an opportunity. Everyone should have an opportunity to contribute. So don't monopolize the discussion, or don't try to force your ideas into the discussion, into the final solution. Also, don't interrupt or talk over other people. Cutting people off when they're not finished with their statement, whatever they were trying to communicate, can actually be unprofessional. It's going to backfire on you and not on that individual. So you, at the end of the day, even though you are in a group, you are responsible for your own action and your own reactions. So it's really important that you keep these pieces in mind as you perceive. Also, what not to do is to be rigid in your ideas. So being inflexible, or not really wanting to budge from what you had prepared. It's not going to work for you in terms of what you want it to be. Your idea may be great, but if the team doesn't like it, it's okay to let it go. This is not the final solution that you're being tested on. It's really you're being tested on your ability to collaborate and move a project forward. And that you must keep in mind at all times. What also not to do is to ignore time management. This is really important because you have certain elements to fulfill in terms of what the school is going to ask you, what Wharton is going to ask you to do. And all of those parts must be discussed in this, 25-minute, 30-minute discussion that you have with your team. And remember, if you are 4 to 6 people, if everyone talks, you don't have a lot of time to really discuss in minutia details, or come up with different plans. So time management is really important, because if you, as everyone fails if no one is keeping time. If you don't go through the entire process, you are not going to be able to present a full cohesive story at the end to the moderator, and therefore, as a collectively as a team, you didn't do your jobs. Also, this is for typically the finance applicants and consultant applicants who have a tendency of speaking a lot in jargon and also high-level discussions. It's really important to remember that an MBA classroom is comprised of individuals who are not in your field and not in your space. So instead of using buzzword and jargon to, prove credibility, you're actually creating barriers for others to understand what you're trying to communicate. So I would highly encourage you not to do this in the interview. And then also failure to, what not to do is to fail to engage this quiet person. There's always a quiet person in the room. And it's, as an applicant, it's your responsibility to engage others around you into bringing and inviting them to the conversation, especially if you see that someone is being quiet. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So in terms of your preparation and in terms of your ability to boost confidence, because you have to do quite a few different things at the same time. One of them, you have to be active listener. You have to come in with your ideas. You have to engage other people. You have to listen what they're saying. So there's a lot at stake and a lot of things that you have to monitor at the same time as you're going through this Wharton TBD. So preparation, in order to be confident, preparation is really going to help you be confident with this experience. Preparation means you have really walked through a solid idea that you have developed on your own and recognize the pros and cons of all the different elements that you need to consider. You have prepared, you have simulated an environment of what it's going to look like to be in that in the Wharton TBD, and recognize that other people are going to come with their own ideas and how you can work together to come up with the best idea for the business plan, right? And some of the techniques in terms of beyond the preparation component is really to be to breathe during this period of time. So you have done all the work in advance, which means don't book an interview, within a couple of days from the invite. Really try to give yourself time to actually go through the preparation process that's necessary to go through. So I always say book the last appointment that's available on the window, and that typically everyone does that. So that's why I said in 15 minutes, an entire day worth of slots were gone. So definitely keep that in mind as you are going through this process. But once you're there and you interview, this happens all the time to every single person. This is not it's normal that you start to get nervous and anxiety comes in. Some ways to maintain the composure and also be confident is to use sort of box breathing, which is essentially you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and then go back and you just continue that cycle until your nerves are calmer, right, for the interview. Well, you also must be, because you have done your research, you have prepared in advance, right? You are going to also, that will also allow you to think fast, meaning you have already thought about all the different variables that you must consider when making a decision. When you choose a stakeholder, why are you choosing that stakeholder? What are the variables of that stakeholder, right? So that thought process that has been integrated into your preparation pre-showing up to Wharton TBD is going to really help you to think fast and to organize your thoughts in order to be confident and successful during the actual interview. You also want to speak with authority. So, when you're practicing, and this is why we're doing an actual simulation, you want to practice your ability to clearly communicate and concisely communicate to others. Typically, if you are only in your community of people, meaning in your space where everyone speaks the same language, it's going to become more difficult for you to be able to communicate concisely and clearly, because you are essentially in a space where everyone understands the same language. But a Wharton TBD may not be that. The individuals there may not fully understand what you are trying to communicate. So speaking with authority is great, but also making sure that you have clear language is going to be important. And that comes with the preparation, of course, in advance of the session. So here's some tactical tips in terms of success. We know this already. You are a professional, right? First impressions matter. Make sure that when you show up to that 1 minute pitch and your introduction to, where you come from, what's your background, use this to establish also credibility, right? You want to show what you do, but also show that you have thought through this process, through this solution purposefully, and that you're not solely relying on the team discussion to come up with a final solution, right? So you have done your due diligence. You are showing up prepared with your team, and that comes in that first impression that they get, which is first you'll be asked to introduce yourself, sort of like a round table, and then you'll go through with the 1 minute pitch. Make sure your pitch is 1 minute and no more, right? And it's a lot. They ask a lot to cram in 1 minute, but it is absolutely doable. So keep that in mind. You also want to, you want to be assertive. Obviously, you are a professional. You don't want to shy away, but you also want to be collaborative. So don't discourage other people's ideas. Encourage them, but also if you don't agree with them, do so disagree in a way that is still respectful of their ideas. Practice active listening. This is really, really important. From the moment you show up until the time you leave, you must be 100% present. So you should have no technology, no chimes of any kind that are distracting you. Truly be present there. Another anecdote, I had a client once who was really tired. He had a lot of work in advance of the session that he was managing, and obviously preparing for the Wharton TBD. And he was tired during the interview. He essentially ended up sort of like spacing out for about 5 minutes and missed an entire section. When then decided to ask the team, oh, what do we decide on this? Everyone paused for a moment because they didn't realize that he wasn't paying attention. This is not a good sign in the Wharton TBD. You have to be fully present at all times. So make sure that you are, the night before the interview, the week before the interview, you do not go to bed late. You are fully rested to make sure that you are fully present during the session. And that will come through by being sort of able to actively listen throughout the entire. Typically, you'll block 2 hours out of your calendar. So for that 2 hours, you want to be actively listening. And then leading without overpowering. Offer structure. You don't need to be the one leading it, being the sort of the leader that is carrying everyone. You can be someone who is summarizing ideas, who is managing time, someone who is inviting others to the conversation, guiding some elements of the discussion, pitching some ways to think about a problem or an element of the problem, right? So, you can be a leader and a teammate without necessarily being the standard idea of what leadership looks like. I see there's a question. Oh, thank you. That was very kind. Thank you. I'm not going to mention your name, but thank you so much for the really nice comment. Excellent. Okay, so that is what we prepared in terms of slides. I mentioned earlier, if you are preparing and waiting for that interview on the 24th, I encourage you to join our waiting list for Wharton TBD mock interview. It's a simulation of the entire experience. So I'll tell you a little bit about that, and then we'll go into questions. I see there's a question, but let me just finish this, and then I'll come to your question specifically. So the Wharton TBD simulation, it's essentially you would have a conversation before your simulation to make sure that you are going in the right direction in terms of your pitch and where you're going. So this is a one-on-one with the coach to make sure that you are in the right direction with your ideas, and you fine-tune and refine your ideas before you show up to the simulation. The simulation will be truly how your Wharton experience is going to be like. We would start exactly the way they start, continue exactly the way they continue. We'll have a 2-hour block time to go through the entire discussion. And then we'll have a feedback session where you'll get specific personalized feedback on how you can improve, how you performed in a team-based discussion, and what are some steps that you must take before you show up to the actual interview. So if that's something that's interesting to you and you want to join the waiting list, I invite you to sign up. It's free. There's no obligation, and on the 24th, the registration will open, and it's only open to those obviously who have an interview. So you wouldn't be able to sign up if you don't have an offer to interview at that point. All right, I'm going to stop sharing screens, and then we can. I'm going to move the screen over here so that I can see you. Excellent. Okay, so here are some questions. It is always detrimental being quieter or the one encouraging to speak up in the TBD. Is it always detrimental to being quiet? No, typically, everyone has their own personality. It doesn't, if you are quiet, I mean, you want to say something, obviously. You don't want to wait too long to say something. I've heard a story once that my client was in a group where this person was really quiet, and at the end came up with a really good idea to integrate into the discussion, but the team had already made the final decision, so they weren't able to integrate that person's perspectives into the presentation, essentially. So I'm assuming this person was very actively listening, coming up and thinking about ways that they can contribute. But remember that you can contribute in many different ways. It doesn't need to be just with ideas. It can be timekeeping. If you feel like you are the quieter person, well, why don't you decide that you're going to be the timekeeper, so at least you are fully engaged and you can say, we have 5 minutes left, or at least something along those lines. Obviously, you want to say more than that, but if that's something that will help you feel a bit more or less anxious in the process, then I would say do that. But you have to know yourself, where your strengths and where your weaknesses lie in a team setting. That's really, really important, because you have to be mindful of what that is so that you can take necessary steps and make sure that you don't mess up on the day that's really important day of your interview. You get one chance in 1 year, right, to do this. Okay, next question. Would you say that an MBA is still worth it? I can be biased, honestly. I do think that an MBA is absolutely worth it. It's so a versatile degree. You can choose to do whatever it is that you want to do with an MBA. You have an understanding of how the business is structured, how you need to think about the business, the variable aspects of a business. So I think it has definitely a lot to offer, but it's not for everyone. Just like anything else, not everything is for everyone. You do really want to make sure that you are thinking about where you want to go, the impact you want to make, and then obviously an MBA, it's never, you don't do an MBA to be like, if I don't get an MBA, I won't be able to do this. An MBA, you must think of an MBA as a degree that helps you collapse time. And that means from where you are to where you want to be. Instead of taking you 20 years, you should be able to do it in 10. That's the idea there. That you can only answer if it's right for you. So there's a comment about the Stanford MBA who was not able to find a job. Honestly, this is something that applicants that are going through this process must really remember, that no one will hand anything to anyone. Sometimes applicants that attend very prestigious institutions, I'm going to be honest, have somewhat of a chip on their shoulder that it's going to be this or nothing. And that sometimes can be that, can lead you to take longer to get a job. It doesn't mean that you should be taking anything. So I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is you want to have plan A, plan B, and plan C. An MBA is helping you with the network, so you should be leveraging that network. No one is going to chase after a candidate just because you have a degree from Stanford. You have to do the legwork. I don't know who this person is that you're referencing or what their story was, because I'm sure their story was greater than the comment here. But I hear sometimes from past clients, because we built such great relationships here at SIA that we continue to stay in touch. And sometimes I hear stories that applicants don't get an internship because they thought that McKinsey and BCG and Bain are going to come and chase after them because they are at one of the Holy Trinity programs, and that's never going to be the case, right? There's more applicants than there are seats, so you do have to do your part just because you are admitted to a top-ranked institution. Excellent. Okay. Thank you for the compliment. And then you asked a question. So would you say that people with an aspiration to start businesses should do an MBA? It really depends on what kind of business you are looking to start and where is that, like what kind of background you're coming in terms of what you have and where you're going with that business. So if you don't have a business degree and you have a very complicated business where you'll need investor capital and all of those elements to start your business, then yeah, an MBA is actually very, very much worth it. You need to convince the investors that it's worthy for them to invest in you, that you know how you're going to manage the business, you know the structure of the business. At least you've been trained correctly, right? And obviously the prestige of the institution does make a difference in that as well. The network of an MBA will help you access that group of investors that you may be interested in, but it does really depend on what do you want to do. So not every business requires an MBA, but depending on the complexity of it all. All right, we're over time. I can talk about this all day, every day. So I will stop here, but I invite you next week. We're going to talk about MIT and Columbia Business School. So if you're considering those, especially for round 2, or as a deferred candidate, definitely join so we can do a comparisons between those 2 schools. And on Friday, on the 25th, so the day after Wharton releases their interview invites, I will be on GMAT Club's interview prep session. So join that one as well, so that we can help you get ready. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week.